Go rap battle. Vox versus Karen. Begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Ego and welcome to the behind the scenes for my new rap battle, Vox vs. Karen. The idea for this battle came from a friend and fellow rap battle creator ClarenceTheDuck, who suggested it under a community post I made asking for Vox matchups. I had a different matchup for Vox initially. I was going to do Vox versus the TV head from Skibidi Toilet, but that didn't really pan out, mostly because the TV head doesn't really have a lot of material or personality to go off of. Whenever I'm picking an opponent for a character in a battle, I always try to base it on how interesting or funny it would be to see those characters interact, and I just couldn't really see Vox and the TV head guy having a good enough dynamic. However, I thought a character like Karen, who's known for making sarcastic quips and insulting people, would really be able to get under Vox's skin, and I thought that would be a really fun dynamic to explore. I loved the idea of having him start off with this really confident and edgy persona, only for Karen to completely shatter it, causing him to drop the act entirely and just go insane. This battle was heavily inspired by the song Stayed Gone from Hazbin Hotel, which is sort of a rap-style duet between Vox and Alastor, where they bicker back and forth about which is the superior medium, television or radio. I thought Karen being a computer kind of made for the perfect excuse to expand on that even more. Instead of TV versus radio, it's TV versus digital. I knew I needed a beat that was kind of robotic sounding, and I had the perfect one in mind pretty much right away. This beat actually might sound a bit familiar if you've seen Marvel vs. Anything, where it was used in MODOK vs. Melvin. I typically try to avoid using beats that have been used before, but I just couldn't get this one out of my head. I literally couldn't envision this battle with any other beat. It was just too perfect, and I think I did a good job making the two battles stand apart. Writing for this one was fun since I had a very clear vision in mind. I ended up getting a full draft done pretty fast, and then most of the time was just spent slightly adjusting it to be perfect. As such, there aren't really scrap lines to look at here like Granny vs. Warden, rather just early concepts of lines that ended up being changed. I used BandLab to make all the demos to my battles, as well as splicing instrumentals and vocals and stuff, and one thing BandLab has is a lyric tab, which is usually where I put all of my ideas for lyrics. I hear people often who want to get into making battles say they don't know where to begin when it comes to writing, and my suggestion is to just write down every single idea for a joke or line concept you have, no matter what. Even if it's stupid, write it down anyway. Because often there's line ideas that I initially don't like that I end up messing with later on, or I look back on and think, I could go somewhere with that. This is what the original notes for Vox vs. Karen looked like. As you can see, it's very unorganized, but it's filled with early versions of jokes and line concepts, many of which made it into the final battle. Once I finished the demo, I began casting for the project. You may have noticed this is the first Ego rap battle that I didn't voice act in, and originally that wasn't going to be the case. I knew I wanted to get Grasman for Vox, as he did the Vox parts in a cover of Stayed Gone that he did on SoundCloud, and I was going to do the Plankton cameo, but then I recorded my own Vox vocals for a temporary mix and ended up really liking it.
Here at Vox Tech, you trust us with your info, but I barely know enough about your Cidisswo. I'm the new status quo. Quid pro quo is your status when you pay your customers to eat your husband's fucking crab sticks. I'm the manager, Karen, I make the big bucks, but like you and your failing marriage, I don't give fucks. Your rapping software will crash when you hear my bars like Val, because I'm going so hard right now.
But while I do like my performance, ultimately I still decided to go through with the original casting because of one thing: the singing part. I know it's not really a singing part, but I didn't quite have the range to pull it off how I wanted. Fortunately, Grasman's extremely talented and was able to do a way better job with it than I did. But if y'all are interested in hearing the full mix with me as Vox, I might post it on my SoundCloud. Just let me know. Casting for Karen was pretty simple too. I needed someone who could pull off Karen's really specific accent, and I decided to go with Mochii when I heard her role as Panty Anarchy, ironically in another Hazbin Hotel battle. Not because she sounded so much like Karen, but because the tone was pretty similar and I could hear it being in her range, which it certainly was. I did actually have to make her redo some lines because she laid on the accent a bit too thick at times, but both actors did a phenomenal job and I'm very happy I went with who I did. Like I said, Plankton I was originally going to play myself, but I really wanted to work with Dupllighost since he's an amazing voice actor and also does a phenomenal Plankton voice, and this was the perfect opportunity, so I just went for it. When it came to mixing this one, I had a few ideas for things I wanted to do, most of which I was able to, but there were a few things that were cut for various reasons. In SpongeBob, all of Karen's lines outside of her first appearance have a beeping effect in the background, and that effect is like impossible to find anywhere online. I searched hours and hours for it and I could not find it anywhere. I tried to make my own beeping effect, but it ended up being really annoying to listen to while she was rapping, so I ended up scrapping that idea. In Hazbin, whenever Vox gets loud and yells, and even sometimes just for effect, they give him this filter that kind of sounds like a TV at full volume. I wanted to do that here, and it wasn't until the final mix, which was made like a week or two before the video came out, that Jordy finally got that effect in there. And while it's subtle, I'm so glad we got to include it. Editing for this one was the main thing I struggled to figure out. Originally, it was going to be edited exactly like Blitz vs. Mr. Boss, mostly PNG with a couple sparse AMV segments. I even worked with the same background artist who did Mr. Boss for the Vox backgrounds, who killed it both times, thanks WeThink. And I really wanted to use this 3D model of the Chum Bucket from Battle for Bikini Bottom, which I thankfully did get to, but ultimately I decided to just go with almost fully AMV, since it was something I hadn't really tried before, and it ended up being quite fun. I'll probably do more of it in the future for animated characters. There are still some shots from when the battle was going to be mostly PNG, one of which I accidentally edited twice, once PNG and once AMV, and I decided to just keep the AMV version since it was more in line with the rest of the battle. All of my parts, minus the Vox PNG stuff, were done in CapCut. Jordy did most of the last verse, and he did a phenomenal job because he's way more experienced at AMV editing than I am. And since he was only doing a few lines, he decided to go all out. I did do some typography here and there. The font that I used is the same one that's used in the actual show, and one thing I found pretty cool is when I downloaded the text file, it was dated 1997, which is the same year the original pilot for SpongeBob was made. That's not really relevant to anything, it's just a cool detail I wanted to share. Anyways, editing for this was fun because it gave me an opportunity to play with a lot of neat glitchy effects in CapCut I always wanted to mess around with. In SpongeBob, Karen sometimes will display little green pixel art style visuals on her screen, and I knew that was something I wanted to have in the battle somewhere, so I used this website called pixillart.com and made a couple short simple animations for the battle, only 2 of which ended up getting used, but here's some of the other ones that didn't get used. To make the AMV a little more interesting, I made some of my own edits to certain shots, such as this one where Plankton holds up a sheet of paper that says no rap battles with a TV. For some reason, CapCut just has the SpongeBob font. It's called something else, but like that's literally just the SpongeBob font. I had to cut out the original text on the paper, and since the scroll opens, I had to frame by frame move the masking effect so that it didn't break the illusion. I probably spent like 45 minutes on this one couple second shot, and while it isn't perfect and you can still see some of the original text poking out, I'm pretty happy with how the visual turned out. The 1% evil, 99% hot ass joke is an obvious reference to the SpongeBob quote, and what I did to make this visual was just mask out the S and replace the A with it, and then move the A to the start so it's spelled S. There's also this blue screen part, which was a little visual gag I made with this website called Blue Screen of Deathmaker. Here's what the unedited version looks like if you're curious. I like to include little Easter eggs or callbacks in pretty much all of my battles. For example, in Granny vs. Warden, next to the Radio and Grandpa's verse, there's a CD case with the Karen vs. Vox cover art on it. There's several more teasers in the other battles that I won't reveal, but I wonder if anyone can find them without me saying where they are. And yeah, that's really about all there is to cover with this one, I think. I'm glad the reception to my last behind the scenes was so positive. Like I said, I've been wanting to make more of these for a while, and I'm glad I'm getting to. I do plan to get to all the others eventually, like I said, and Blitz should be next, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.